Hi, I'm Alice and I'm here to make maths easier for you. Today we have the second video in my series about quadratic equations, and we're going to be expanding double brackets today. Thank you once again to Emily for suggesting this topic. If you would like to suggest a topic, please comment on the video, and if you could be so kind as to like and subscribe, I'd be very grateful. Today, I'll be teaching you a full maths lesson. So that will be a combination of me showing you things and exercises for you to try yourself. It's not like a quick how-to video. It's like you're participating in a full maths lesson. So get yourself a pen and paper if you haven't got one already. It will help you today if you have some knowledge of how to use negative numbers. That's adding, subtracting and multiplying them today. If you're not 100% on anything, don't worry, I'm here with you, so I'm sure you'll get on fine. It will also help you if you've already seen my previous video, Introduction to Quadratics. And it will be good if you've had some experience of expanding and simplifying with linear equations. Again, if you're not sure about that, no worries, I'm sure you'll get on fine. On this channel, we do algebra for anxious people. So what that means is we accept and work with maths anxiety. It's difficult to make it go away, but we can learn how to get past it and improve our mathematical skills and feel more relaxed while we're doing it. We understand that mistakes and forgetting are part of the process. I give you psychology tips in every video. And there's always going to be links in the description if you need further support with your mental health. If you've seen a few of my videos, you may have noticed that we do the same psychology tip for a few videos in a row. That's because managing how your brain works is just like maths. You need to practice the same thing over and over to really master it. And then you'll need to go back and revisit it at some point as well. So our psychology tip today, one of my favorites, is the idea that a calm and happy face can help you to have a calmer and happier mind. And conversely, if you have a stressed face, then it will be contributing towards your stress. So you may have noticed that if you get stressed, I don't know if you're stressed now, but if you get stressed, we tend to get a lot of tension around our forehead, around our eyes and jaw. If you consciously relax those areas and even put on a little smile if you like, or a big silly smile if you're a bit like me and like to be silly, then you will notice that you over time feel more relaxed. And if you've noticed that tension coming in your face, just take a moment to give it a little massage. Up and out is the best way, and just relieve some of that tension. I've put these emojis through the video to help you remember to keep an eye on the tension in your face as we're going along. What we're doing today is we are expanding double brackets. So you see these on the left, we're turning them into those on the right. The opposite of expanding is factorizing, and when I've made the video about how to do that, I'll come back and put it here. Let's get straight in with our example. I'm going to show you this one. If you would like to work along with me, that would be great. Or you can just watch. Perhaps you copy it down as you go along. You decide. I'm going to show you in this example 4 different ways to expand these double brackets. And I'm also going to hopefully give you an understanding of what it is that you're doing. So I'm going to show you my preferred method first, which I don't know if it's got a name, I just call it simple expanding. Now what we're going to do is we're going to multiply everything in this bracket by everything in this bracket, and that is going to produce a quadratic equation, because a quadratic has to have a x squared involved in it. That is what makes it a quadratic. So let's just have a look at how to do that. So if I'm multiplying everything in the first bracket by everything in the second bracket, I'll need to multiply the x by the x. It's a good idea to actually draw these lines. So that's x times x is x squared. I will need to multiply the x by the +2. There's a reason why I'm doing it in this order, which you'll see as we're going along. And also, please note that when I talk about these terms, the sign always goes with the number or letter that is after it. So x times +2 is +2x, meaning there are now two x's, positive x's. Next of all, we go to the bottom. We are now doing the +1 times both of the items in the other bracket. So I can have 1 times x is +1x. I don't write 1x, I just write x, because when there's just x, it just means I have one of them. And I'm sure if you wrote 1x, you'd still get a mark, but it's not what we really do. And then we have +1 times +2, which makes +2. So we've now multiplied everything in the first bracket by everything in the second bracket. And if you look at those little lines that I've drawn, you can see that they connect every single thing to each other. Now we'll simplify it. When we simplify, that means that we put all of the things that are the same together. Simplifying does not make x squared the same as x, by the way. So to simplify, we will take the two things that are the same, which are 2x and x. I know that this first one has an x in it and this one has a 2 in it, but letters with a different power are different from each other when we simplify. And this 2 here doesn't actually mean the number 2, it means 2 of my number x. So now we have x squared, that just stays as it is. Right, we've got 2 x's and another x. So the total of 2x and another x is 3 lots of x, or 3 x's, which I just write 3x. And then I've got +2. Now, the reason why I did it in the exact order that I did was so that I would get the 2x and the x next to each other. Those are the alike terms that I then put together in the final answer. So if it had ended up like x squared plus 2x plus 2 plus x, it would have been a little bit less easy to put those together. So whatever method we're doing, you'll notice that we always end up with the terms with the x's in that we put together next to each other. So that was my preferred method. Some people like to use an acronym to help them remember that method called FOIL, which stands for first, outer, inner, last. Some people find that actually adding on words and letters makes it more complicated, but some people, the way they learn is remembering an acronym really helps them. I think I'm more of a visual learner myself, so seeing this shape works for me. But if you are a learner who focuses more on words and letters, then FOIL may really help you. So you'll notice it's just the same as my method that I just showed you, but with the acronym FOIL to help you remember what to do and when. So we have the first, which means the first term in the bracket times by the first term in the next bracket, x times x squared, just like before. We have the outer, meaning you times the first number by the last number because they're like the outer ones. Then you have inner, which is like the two that are closest to each other times together. As you can see, it's exactly the same as my method, just with an acronym. And finally, we have the last, meaning the last one in each bracket. So there you have it. And of course, you just get the same answer. But as you can see, it's put those two terms with an X in them together. Your choice. Do it with the word FOIL, do it without. It's really the same method. Everyone is different. If you don't like FOIL with or without the word attached to it, maybe you might prefer grid multiplying. So we make a multiplication grid like this. You may remember these from when you were younger in primary school. A lot of people do a multiplication grid. And into our grid, along the top, we put the first bracket. The X is in the first column. And remember, the sign always goes with the number or term that's after it. So we've got +1. You must always put the plus or minus there too. Then we have the X from the second bracket there. and +2. Now, what we're going to do is we're just going to use the columns and rows on the grid to multiply everything together. So we've got our x squared, we've got our plus x, our plus 2x, and our plus 2. Now, when we put them together, you'll notice once again, I am doing it in an order that puts my x's next to each other. So I cross them off as I go. And you can see I've just added the 2x and the x together there. And finally, I put the plus 2. So you can see I kind of go diagonally to cross those off. And that's our grid method. There's one final method, which I think works quite well with these simple ones, but I will later show you when it doesn't work. And that is our shortcut method. Let's have a look at that. Now, you might have noticed already that there's a pattern if you're the kind of person who likes to look for patterns. Look at this. We've got x squared at the beginning, which was made by timesing the 2x's. We've got plus 2 at the end, which is the product, or that's a fancy word for the answer when you multiply the two numbers, the product of the two numbers. Look, 1 times 2 is 2. And then in the middle, you've got the number of x's, which is 1x, and 2x makes 3x. So in other words, you have the x squared, you have the number of x's in the middle is the sum or total of the two numbers in the brackets. And then the number at the end is the product, or what you get when you multiply, of the two numbers. If you are someone who likes shortcuts and you're good at working things out in your head, maybe this is the method for you. Now, we are going to do quite a few practice exercises today. So you should be taking these at your own pace. If I'm going to quickly, you can always pause and go back. If I'm going too slowly, you could go forwards a few seconds or use the chapters to take you to the next part. Just a tip, if you want to just see the answer, go to just before the end of the chapter. Now, I am going to be saving some time by not doing every single method for each exercise. If you like to use grid multiply, I will be showing you that for the first one. But honestly, it's like I've shown you 4 different ways of doing exactly the same thing. I don't know if you could see it was always producing the same result, but hopefully you did. And so, as I said, I'm going to speed up a little bit as I go and not include every single method each time. Simple, expand and FOIL are kind of the same thing, just with or without a word anyway. So are you going to try this one yourself? I encourage you to try it yourself. Worst thing that can happen is you make a mistake or you get confused and then you have to stop and check with me. And that's really not that bad, is it? Anyway, let's see. Pause now if you're going to try it yourself. First of all, I've multiplied the x by the x to get x squared, and then by the 6 to get 6x. Now I multiply the 4 by both of the terms in the next bracket, and I get plus 4x and plus 24. Did you get that? And then I can simplify by putting the 6 and the 4x together to add 10x, and there's my final answer. Our next example, there is something a little bit different about it. Can you see what it is? We have an x in each bracket, we have a number in each bracket, but look, this is a negative number or a subtracted number. We have x take away 3. Let's just see what happens and what's different when we do it with a subtracted number or a negative number. There's our x squared. You'll get very used to that today. Look, remember, always the number goes with the sign that's before it. So we have x squared and minus 3 times x is minus 3x. Then we have our inner numbers. We have plus 5 times x, which gives us plus 5x. And finally, this is where our negative number skills come in. We have positive 5 times by negative 3, minus times a plus is a minus, so we get minus 15. Now watch what happens when we combine the minus 3x's and the plus 5x's. You might already be familiar with this if you've done a bit of simplifying before. If you're not, no worries, I'll show you now. There's our x squared, same as always. We know we will be combining the x's. What we actually get is plus 2x. You can think of this in a couple of ways. If you had minus 3 and you added on 5, you would get positive 2. Or you can swap it round so you have the positive number first. That makes it easier. Nonetheless, the result is plus 2x. We finish with minus 15, just like we did in the last one. So the only difference is you have a little bit of negative numbers to work with in the middle there. This is what it would look like with a grid multiply. I just wanted to show you that to remind you the importance of putting the sign with the number. Look, because then you've got minus 3 times x, minus 3 times plus 5. This one is very similar to the last one. I encourage you to at least do part of this yourself. If you get stuck and you're not sure how to simplify, then come back to me. But I'm not actually going to show you every step of this one. I'm just going to show you what I get when I do the multiplying and then what we get when we do the simplifying. So pause now if you want to try it yourself. And here come those steps. So you can see I've done my FOIL or whatever you want to call it. And I've got a minus 2x and a plus 1x. What happens then is we put our minus 2 and our plus 1 together. And if I add 1 onto minus 2, or if I take 2 away from 1, I get minus 1. So, of course, we don't put minus 1x. It's just the same as plus 1x. We just put minus x. We don't need a 1. And there it is. Here we have a very slightly different set of brackets. The only thing that's different from the last one, look, is both of our numbers are negative or subtracted. So once again, I'm not going to show you each step in turn. I'm just going to show you all of the multiplied terms. So if you are going to pause it and try it yourself, pause it now. Otherwise, let's look at it together. There you go, look. So I've got an x squared and a minus 5x from the first one, and I've got a minus 4x and a plus 20 from the second one. So what do you think happens when we put the minus 5x and the minus 4x together? Let's have a look. Try it yourself if you haven't yet. And let's see. There's our x squared, same as always. Minus 5 and minus 4 go together to make minus 9. And finally, we have our plus 20, just the same as before. I'm now going to move us on to a slightly more challenging set of equations. Not much more challenging, I wouldn't say. The only small difference that we have, have you spotted it? Look, it's a number before the x. So it's just a little bit more fiddly, and I would strongly suggest that you do not use the shortcut this time. It is kind of possible to use a shortcut, but the pattern is slightly different and it's a lot harder. And I think shortcuts are only shortcuts if they actually make it quicker. And I think, to be honest, I think you're more likely to get it right and do it in a quick way if you actually don't use a shortcut this time. So just the same as before, you'll just notice that we've got a 2 in there. Let's see what happens. Are you going to be brave and try it yourself, even though it's a bit different? I hope so. Or maybe you could just try one step yourself. Anyway, let's look at the answer. When we times our 2x's by x, we get 2x squared. Because x times x is x squared, and then we've got 2 of them as well. Then we've got 2x's times by positive 5 gives us plus 10x, because I've got, it's basically like 2 times 5 with an x on the end, isn't it? And then we've got, same as before, we just times our number by our letter, 6x, And finally, 5 times 6. So what happens? It's just exactly the same, just with a 2x there. Look, the 10 and the 6 go together to make 16. And we have 2x squared plus 16x plus 30. This one, I have made it a little bit more tricky again, because look, I've got a number before each of the x's in both brackets. Do you think you're going to try it yourself anyway? What if you make a mistake? You feel a bit annoyed. That's about as bad as it gets, really. I know sometimes it feels worse than that, but we accept that mistakes happen and we try and push ourselves. So are you giving it a go yourself already? If not, I strongly suggest that you do. So pause now and I will show you the answer now. So we do 3 times 2 is 6, and x times x is x squared. You may know already, if you've done some simplifying before, that when we're timesing two terms, we combine things that are the same type of term. So numbers are the same type of term and x's are the same type of term. So you can see we've got 3 times 2 and x times x, by the way. Then we've got 3x times plus 4 is plus 12x. And minus 3 times 2x is minus 6x. And finally, minus 3 times plus 4 is minus 12. Let's put all that together, just like always. And we have this. Look, the plus 12 and the minus 6 come together to make plus 6. Now, I've taught enough maths to enough people to know that even if you tell people that working out in their head isn't the best way and they shouldn't do a shortcut because it's too tricky, some people will always want to do a shortcut. So let's have a look at how the shortcut actually works in this more tricky one, just in case you just cannot stop yourself from working it out in your head and not showing your workings out. Anyway, so look, the 3x and the 2x go together to make our 6x squared. So that's very like our original way with the shortcut. The minus 3 and the plus 4 go together to make our minus 12. What about the middle number? That in the past was a combination of this number and this number, wasn't it, where you added them? And that gave you the number of x's. Clearly, that's not what's happened here. What's happened is that we've got the product of the minus 3 and the 2, that's minus 6, added to the product of the plus 3 and the plus 4. So we've got minus 6 and 12, just like we see here. So can you use the shortcut? Yes. Should you? Probably not. A little bit more tricky, wasn't it? By the time you'd worked it all out, you probably could have just written it and it would have actually been easier. Now, to finish off, remember, if you need to take a break at any point, I encourage you to. But if you're still ready to crack on, then we've got 3 practice exercises for you to sit down and try yourself. It is a bit more difficult to sit and do a load of them rather than have someone talking you through each step. And I have mixed up the different types of equations and skills that we have done throughout the lesson. I've got 2 pages of practice exercises. And after I stop talking, you can press pause and then we'll look together at the answers. Are you ready? Are you going to give them a try? Press pause. Okay. First one, I'm just going to show you the workings and the answers. We're not going to look at each step, but if you have got it wrong, then my workings will hopefully show you where you went wrong so that you can improve for next time, because mistakes help us to learn, of course. Here we go, exercise number 1. And the answer is 4x squared plus 9x plus 2. Exercise number 2. We have x squared minus 9x plus 14. And finally, number 3, we have 12x squared minus 26x plus 10. Are you ready for another page? Last practice exercises for you, and then we'll be finished. Well done if you've made it this far. You are doing amazing work to improve your maths. I hope it's going well for you. If it's not, just keep on practicing. I promise it will get better. So I just wanted to tell you before we started these three that the last one is a little bit cheeky. I have made an answer which is a bit different from the other one. Something a bit unexpected happens, and you might be left thinking, oh, I don't know if that's right or not. So if that happens to you, that was on purpose. So yeah, just watch out for that last one. But if you just use the methods that I've shown you, you'll find that it's fine. So pause now to have a go at these and then come back to me for your answers. Here we go. First one, we've got x squared plus x minus 72. Next one, bit of a harder one. Got a few things going on here with our two numbers and our add and subtract. We've got 14x squared plus 10x minus 4. Now here's our weird one coming up. Did you do it? Did you see what was strange about it? Let's see if you got it right. We've got 20x squared minus 20. Where did that middle term with the x's go? Well, look, you probably noticed this already if you've worked this out. The added and subtracted term were the same as each other, weren't they? So if you add 20 and subtract 20, you're left with nothing. And that's what happens. So when that happens, it's just not there anymore. So we just miss it out and we just have 20x squared minus 20. We will, in a future video, look at difference of two squares where that is a bit more of a common thing to happen, but it could happen with any quadratic where the two x terms cancel each other out. Now, at this point, you may feel that enough is enough, and I agree with you. You shouldn't do too much maths at once. It's better to do a small amount of practice frequently than it is to do a big chunk of it. However, remember, we should be doing it frequently. So I've put a worksheet in the description so that on another day you could go back and test your skills and practice some more. And then if you find you're struggling on that worksheet, just come back and watch any relevant sections of this video. And we are done. Thank you so much for joining me for this lesson. I really hope it was helpful to you and did make maths a bit easier for you. Well done you for making this commitment to improving your maths. In our next videos, we will be moving on to factorising quadratic equations and also solving them. And then after that, we will look at how to draw a quadratic graph with our nice parabola curve. And then we will go on to, well, it's called harder, but I'm sure if you keep on working with me, it won't be that hard, factorising and solving at a more sort of advanced level. Remember, in the description, we've got some information about mental health support. Please don't suffer alone. There are many people who want to help you, often without you having to pay. And there's also some useful information about quadratics and the graph drawing tool that I used in my previous lesson. Finally, please like, please comment, please subscribe. It's a new YouTube channel and I would just love to make maths easier for more people. Goodbye.